It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, of course. Happy to.
So let's begin our conversation with this. I always start with COVID. 5, 6 years ago, this thing was raging. How did you get through the coronavirus era, and how did it change the way that you approach life and work today?
Yeah, we had such a unique situation because we had moved states pretty like 6 months, 6 or 7 months before COVID hit.
Yeah,
And so that really shook us up because we had not established a community really where we were at. And honestly, it was hard for a
yeah,
while. We knew some people here where we live now, but it did a couple of things. It kind of isolated us in a way that wasn't helpful when you move to a new space.
yeah,
But it also allowed us to expand some relationships because so many people became comfortable online.
yeah.
And so we were able to take some things from back home, our original home, and we were able to take that to the new place because we had more of this online space that we didn't have before. So there were some hard things. Our son was really young. So trying to manage through some of that was interesting so
Yeah.
that he didn't, get bored and all of that. But thankfully, I own my own business. And so that really allowed me to focus on that actually.
Yeah.
And I was able to grow in a different way than I originally thought,
Yeah.
just because of what the pandemic did.
So let's get into what you're doing as a career coach and strategist. And to make it make sense, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids, 12, 13 years old. And one of the kids, it's career day. One of the kids wants to know what you do on a daily basis. How do you boil that down and make it make sense?
Yeah. So I actually did a video for a friend of mine who teaches that age
Okay.
group.
You're well versed.
So I love this
Yeah.
question. So what I do is I help adults usually figure out what they want to do with their life and their career
Yeah.
and where they want to focus. And that's everything from who am I in this world to how do I find a new position on the path that I want to take. And so a lot of what I do is I help people explore who they are when they get to a certain point in their life. So we all have this idea of, oh, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a doctor. And those are great. Those are wonderful ambitions. But sometimes people get to a point in their life where they want to do something different.
Yeah.
They want to have a different experience or they want to make a shift. And that's when they come to me and I help them with that shift.
It's interesting. I remember in junior high when we had the career days, and this was in the late 80s, and they were like, you're going to switch careers between, I think, 7 to 12 times. And I was like, wait, no, I kind of know what I want to do. What do you mean? Because you're not
Mhm.
thinking that, especially then. Now with the Gen Zers and the younger generations, there's this entrepreneurial spirit. There's a different, like, diversification of careers right now. But back then, you followed what you kind of saw in mass media and your parents and communities, and it was like that seemed like a whole lot. So getting to this point where people come to you to recalibrate their existence makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I would say too, that 7 to 12 was not big shifts.
Right.
You were doing the same work,
Yeah.
likely for a different company or a different industry. And I think that's a really big distinction to make between then and now.
Yeah.
Now people are making massive shifts in their career. They're going to completely new paths in some cases.
I'm so glad you clarified that because that's true. Because there are like lateral moves, parallel
Mhm.
moves that, and then there's just zigzags that
Yes.
happen, you know. So, speaking of zigzags, let's begin at the beginning for you. When you were that age, 12 to 13, what was your dream gig? What did you want to do?
I have the most typical female millennial response, which is I wanted to be a dolphin trainer.
Uh-huh.
I thought that was the coolest thing. And I've only recently, in the last couple of years, realized that that was not a unique thing. So many of us apparently wanted to do that. So I'm not 100% sure what got into our psyche around that.
Yeah.
But that was the original thought when I was much younger. My parents were also teachers. So there was a point where I thought teaching might be a path. I very quickly did not want to do that at the K-12 side, so that was helpful to learn very quickly. But I do teach now. I just teach at the college level, and that's much better for me.
So when every time I ask this question, I've never had a guy say that they wanted to get into marine biology or do water animals. It just never happens. But women, it's like it's always that's the beginning point. And I don't know if it's the mermaid thing. I don't know if there's a level of comfort in water because you bring life into the world. There's a different embryonic vibe that goes into the gen. I don't know, but it's
I have no
always
idea.
women. I mean, and whenever a guy does that, I've had it maybe once or twice. I'm like, really? Like Jacques Cousteau kind of a thing, but
Yeah.
it's wild.
Mine was the dolphin thing. Dolphins are one
Yeah,
of my favorite animals,
yeah,
always have been. And I was like, this would be really cool. They are super smart. They are fun. Like, that's what it was for me. Funny enough, I get sick on boats.
yeah,
Like, I have terrible motion sickness.
yeah,
So that path definitely was not going to pan
yeah.
out for
Wasn't gonna
me.
happen. It's kind of like the veterinarian thing. It's like it's all cute until
Mhm.
you see that there's blood and that there's euthanizing those things. That's when
Yeah.
courses change very quick, you
Oh
know.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
let me ask you this. Are you from San Diego originally?
My husband's originally from San Diego. I'm
Okay.
from Southern California,
Okay.
mostly Inland Empire, but I've lived all over.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go back to your beginnings. What were the seeds that were planted that eventually harvested into you becoming an advisor for careers and helping people make that momentous shift in their lives? Huh.
For me, I have always been the friend that people go to
Okay.
solve problems.
Hmm.
I remember this from probably a high school age on. My path in college was wildly different than what I do now, which is another story we can talk about. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was always the one that people came to. How do I solve this? How do I look at this a different way? Am I making a good decision? That I was just that friend, and some of my friends liked it, some didn't. I was very honest with them. It lost me some friends along the way because I would tell them, look, you're making a bad decision and here's why.
Yeah.
And I was right,
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that planted the seed for me to be a coach, but it wasn't until many years later that I really honed in on, oh, no, I could do this. I can do this for a profession and enjoy what I'm doing day to day. And then that's when I really locked in with it. And now we're here owning our own business. So,
So take me back to the beginning of your career. You had mentioned college being a flashpoint. How did you evolve to this actual entrepreneurial place that you're at right now?
yeah. So, the shortest version I can say is I was an art major, art and graphic design in undergrad. I wanted to be an art director and all that. Was not very gifted in that. I could do it, but it was not where it needed to be successful in that field at that time. This is pre, all the technology that we have now. This is early 2000s,
Yeah.
okay?
Uh-huh.
Graphic design looked very different. My portfolio was printed
Yep.
in a box, okay? It's
Uh-huh.
totally different.
Yep.
So I did that for a few years and I was not happy. And I knew that I was not going to get to where I wanted to be without having the real raw talent that you need in that field to get to an art director place. So I did some soul searching. I went to a career coach at my college and I did everything. I was like, give me the overhaul. I want to know everything about everything. I was very lost. And it actually led me into a master's program that was geared toward working with college students, and it was very counseling focused. And so that then led me into higher education and career development specifically.
Okay.
So I got the career development treatment
Yeah.
that actually led me into the profession. But because I had done so much of that inner work and that inner exploration, I was so confident in the path that I had chosen because it was informed. I wasn't just making guesses along the way. I knew exactly who I was and how I was going to move through that type of career. Now, having my business, that was a total wild card moment
Yeah.
that was bred out of honestly like personal tragedy.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where my story I think gets the most interesting, which is unfortunate because it's the most pivotal and sad.
Yeah.
Um, Lost my dad in 2016, had my son in 2017, and lost my mom in 2018.
Wow.
So three really massive, life events happened very close together. I'm also an only child.
Gotcha.
So losing both my parents very close together just sent me on a tailspin, basically. And so I knew that things needed to change for anybody that's gone through a close death in the family or a friend or something like that. It really changes how you view life,
Yeah.
how you think about yourself. It prompted our move out of Southern California. Just so many shifts and changes that happened. And I knew at that point I wanted more control over my schedule. I wanted more control over the type of work that I did.
Yeah.
I loved my job. I loved the institution that I was working for, and the work that I was doing was so fulfilling. The fact that I left still shocks me to this day, but you're still constrained, right? I had one population at the time that I was working with, and I had to work with them in a certain way, and that's fine. That's great. I loved them, I just wanted something different, and I wanted more control over the type of coaching that I did and who I coached and what those programs looked like and all of that. And I wanted to have a unique voice.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have the institutional voice that you have when you work for an organization. And so that led me into having my own business.
Interesting. So you got a real quick lesson in mortality from the beginnings of
Mhm.
life to the endings of life. And there's a level I think I find now that I'm older when I look at people that I've known in my life, the way that you deal with death and the oncoming grief that is afterwards can either make or break you.
Mhm.
Like that's
I mean,
it.
it
That's
broke me.
right. But you're here and you recovered and
Yes.
you evolved. For some people it never stops. It's the way that you conceptualize, because if you go back
Yeah.
to the very first time that you experienced that in your life to
Yeah.
the big moments that happen in your life, it's you're never prepared, but at the same time there's always levels of it that yeah, that will make you grow and do things that are potentially good for you that come out of grief, you know?
It
So,
really was. I think it was one of, as sad as it all is, and as much as I wish my parents were still here, especially to watch my son grow up, and just to be able to ask those life questions that
yeah,
you have, I wish for all of those things. But honestly, I would not be the person that I am today had that not happened. And I truly believe I'm probably the best version of myself right now than I was around the time that they passed. I think that I was moving through life, but I was not living.
yeah.
And their deaths really, and the birth of my son, I mean, it just snapped me
Oh, yeah.
out of it. And I think it scared a lot of people in my life because they were like, oh, you are the most consistent, you're the most, you're risk averse, you do all the right things, you check all the boxes, and I threw all that out
Yep,
and said nope, don't care.
yep.
I'm going for it. We're making some big changes, and thankfully my husband was on board with it all, and I think we honestly, both of us we are the best versions of ourselves now than I think we've ever been.
So let me ask you this. Who's been that inspirational force, that kind of heroic force in your life that's allowed you to evolve to get through all of these things and become who you are today?
Honestly, I think it's still my parents
Yeah,
in a weird way. I think I was just thinking about this a couple days ago, so it's funny that you ask. I feel like I made a lot of career choices and life decisions because of them, because I wanted to appease them, as you do, especially as an only child. And once they passed, it really became, am I honoring them? Am I honoring the person that they created me to be? And am I really pushing into the best version of myself? And I think sometimes I don't even realize what I've done in this business until somebody else points it out to me. And I realize how successful I've been and the impact that I've had. And then I go, oh my gosh, I wish that I could call my parents and tell them about it
Yeah.
because I think they would look at me and be like, man, I can't believe you're doing this. You never would have done this before, and this is
Yeah.
really cool.
So if you can meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find inspirational, that has like maybe a dream career that you would have loved to have had is with ideas of art and graphic design, or just someone that would help you in your business acumen and is your compass needle of
Mhm.
helping people get to a career place, who would you love to hang out with for a little bit?
Oh, Brene Brown.
Okay.
Brene Brown. First of all, her books, especially The Gifts of Imperfection, were one of those life-changing books for me.
Yeah.
And I recommend that book to everybody.
Yeah.
But what I love about her is her infusion of research and practical experience into information that people can understand and implement really practically. And so the influence that she's had over my business and how I function and what I'm trying to do as a coach, she has heavily influenced that through her writing, through her speaking, and all of that.
So what is your philosophy on work-life balance? How does that work for you? How do you imbue that on others if you get that question?
Work-life balance looks very different for me now than it did about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I worked to well, no, I lived to work. Work was the thing that I did. I was very focused on it. Type A, showed up early, went home late, volunteered for everything. I mean, I was checking all of the boxes. When I started my business, because of everything I had gone through, I knew that I had to change my relationship with work. And I knew that because of who I am, my ambition, and all of that, I knew that my business could very quickly take over everything. And I didn't want that.
Yeah.
And so when I really in the early stages, I pulled back a lot on my ambition. And I've built this business really, really slowly, intentionally, because I had to figure out how to live and work at the same time and not burn myself out. And let me tell you, it's hard. It's, it's very hard. My husband has had to have, we call them come to Jesus talks with me, because I will sometimes lock myself in the office for days at a time to work on a project.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore, but we did that a lot in the beginning, and I've really had to be aware of my working style and how do I manage myself in a different way. And so I impart that onto my clients now, if that's something that they're dealing with. It's a little bit different because I own my business, I run my own schedule, so I have a lot more freedom in that way. But I knew that that's what I needed in order for me to figure out how to balance and get in the right headspace to be able to do that.
So you clearly love what you do. You're passionate about it. When that alarm clock goes off in the morning, what motivates you to do this at a high level? Take care of yourself and your family. What is that motivation for you?
I want to see people succeed.
Yeah.
I get excited. I have a client after this that I'm very excited to meet with because I know what they're struggling with. And I know that we're going to have a really good conversation to help them move through things, and I love getting progress emails. I got a couple this morning that I wasn't expecting. Not always good news, right? But still being able to have those relationships and encourage my clients and go, hey, it's okay. This is a small setback, but you know what? Here's what happened. Here's why. We know what's going on. Now let's move forward.
Yeah.
And so being that champion to help them and that feeling, I love that. It absolutely keeps me going.
So from your cerebral part of your brain, when you see the big lighted up thing that says retirement, what comes to mind for you? How do you perceive that?
Oh, that feels very far off.
Yes.
Retirement for me will honestly still be some of this.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be teaching. I teach now. I think I'll continue that as long as they'll have me. I think speaking, I don't do well in stagnation. So I feel like even in retirement, there's going to be some sort of business thing going on. It might be slower. The cadence might look a little bit different as my business evolves and I evolve and all of that. But I still think that I'd be doing some version of this or doing something because I need to be active in that way.
Yeah. So if you had a dream tonight, ran into the 16-year-old version of you, and you walked up to her and you had a big book in your hands, and it was like a big coffee table book, and it was the story of your life so far, and you handed it over and said, "This is how it's turned out so far," would that young version of you believe it?
No, no, not even a little bit.
Would you have any advice? What would you say to that version?
I think that version of myself, I would say stay true to yourself, even through the criticism, because that true version of yourself is what's going to make you successful later in life.
The one thing about having a career is that you get this advice. Probably begins with your parents and then works its way through mentors and people you've worked with. But when you look back on your work history, who was a person or what was advice that you got that left an impression? May not have been magnanimous, may not have been the Kevin Bacon moment, but it was a moment, right? That just made sense. What was there a moment or a person like that in your life?
Yes, and it's not what you think.
Yeah,
So I was in a situation where we had some big leadership changes, and I became the interim director over my team. And I was the probably the newest to the profession, but I became the interim director
yeah.
just because of my skill set and all of that. And the person that appointed me as interim director then turned around and told me that I would never be director of the team. And that moment was such a pivotal
Yeah.
moment for me because I was like, no. And I ended up leaving and running an office and creating an entire office from scratch after that position and that experience. So that negativity actually fueled me to leave and to go do something bigger. And I don't know if this is a proud moment or not, but within about a year and a half of me leaving, the entire department fell apart.
Wow.
So,
It's moments like that where life is stranger than fiction because sometimes the real hero is the anti-hero.
yeah.
Would you want that person to know that? That you proved him wrong?
I'm sure that person does because I have
Okay,
talked about it a
gotcha.
lot on
I gotcha.
podcasts throughout the
Okay.
years.
So they know it. They know it loud and clear.
I feel like they probably do.
Okay.
If they've been stalking me, I don't know. I don't have that kind of ego.
So let me ask you this. Everyone of everything that you've done, everything that you've overcome, everything that you've evolved to, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Mm, my kid.
Yeah, 100%.
My kid, he is, I mean, look, he's a kid.
Right.
He's a kid, but honestly, he's so smart. He's extremely talented in things that I just am not. Um, he has such a wonderful heart, and he's so creative in a way that I never was, even though I have an art degree. And I just love watching him learn and grow. And I'm so excited to see where he ends up
That's
in
cool.
life, whatever he decides. I think he's my greatest accomplishment.
So let's say you walked into a room of everybody that knows you in a business sense throughout all of these years and different incarnations and all the employees you had and all the bosses you had, everybody you worked with, and you could swim through that room of people and go to a podium and tell them a fun story. The first concert you went to, jumping out of an airplane, a seminal place you traveled to, just a fun story that would humanize you, that would take
Yeah.
you out of that pure business sense. What story would you tell that room of people?
Ooh, this is such a good question.
Or maybe as an artist, like the first real visceral reaction to a piece that you showed somebody that really made you think, yeah, this is great.
So, okay, I'll go with the art thing because I think that's a little bit easier for.
Yeah, that's why I wanted, yeah,
So I have a, you have to remember I was graphic design,
right.
but my degree at the time where I went, it was art first. So it was
Okay.
traditional art with an emphasis in graphic design. So I had to take drawing and painting and all that. I am not a drawer. I'm not a painter. That was not
Yeah.
not my thing. But I have one piece that I did that was oils. It was oil painting. For anybody that understands oil painting,
Oh,
it
I
is an
know.
arduous process.
I know. I do.
Layers, so much. But I have that painting in my house, and it's been in every place that I've lived since college. And it's a dancer. It was a friend of mine. She's up on point in fifth position, and I took a photograph of her from the back, so it's like her from the knees down and her calves and the shoes and all of that. And I was a dancer for a long time. And so it was very personal to me in terms of, I just love the beauty of dance. I understand the body and all of that. And I was able to mix it in with, this art that I was learning and
Yeah.
everything. And I will tell you that is the piece that I am the most proud of.
Yeah.
And anytime somebody comes into my house, I'm like, I painted this.
That's so cool.
And yeah, and people that don't really know me in that sense, if you've known me most of my life, you know about that painting. But for newer people, they're like, "What? You
Yeah.
painted this?" I'm like, "Yeah." And if you know anything about art, when you are painting the human body and
Oh,
you
yeah.
are painting muscles
Uh-huh.
and the shadows, it is hard,
Very hard.
so hard. And it's one of the pieces that I am the most proud of, and I tell everybody about it, and usually they're very shocked that I can create something like that.
That's
So,
awesome. What a great story. See, that's it. And I was going to ask earlier on about painting, so you answered both questions swimmingly. So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am continually working on this
Yeah.
because I think that my internal perception is wildly different than the external perception.
Yeah.
I think the feedback that I get from people, and this has happened on a couple of podcasts, and I laugh every time. They'll say, "Oh, you're so funny, you're so light, you're so kind." You like all of these very effervescent words. And I'm like, who's that? I don't know who that
Yeah.
is. Because my internal is just not like that, because my internal is very straightforward, very honest, very to the point. I do like to have fun, but I think that internally, I don't view myself that way.
Yeah.
And so I'm really trying to reconcile that. And my husband's even said, he's like, look, when you are with a client, when you do an interview, you become this other version of yourself
Yeah.
that is like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, you might not see it, but I can see it.
Yeah. That's
And so I'm trying to embrace that a little
sure.
bit more because it's really not how I describe myself. And I think a lot of that is from the early years of basically being told, hey, you're too direct, you're too forward, you have too much of an opinion, and that, women don't talk like that. You
Right.
shouldn't be this way. It's too, RBF, all of those things I think are still ingrained in me. And I'm continuously trying to work that out.
Yeah. Great answer. So if anybody wants to get involved, Ride the Tide Collective, they want to reach out, they have questions, any of the good business, where do they go?
They go to ridethetidecollective.com. You can schedule a complimentary coaching call with me where we kind of figure out what you need.
Yeah.
And if I'm not what you need, I will help find you what you do need. I think that's one of the differences between me and other coaches. I'm not going to sell you something that you don't need, especially if I'm not the right person for you. So I highly recommend y'all check me out there. And obviously, LinkedIn is always great if you want to kind of see little nuggets of career information each day. I try to post there.
Excellent. Julia, what a wonderful story. Thank you so much for taking a minute out. Best of luck. Have a wonderful 2026.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Thank you.